Yeah, so just tell everyone that it's the most important thing for America's national security to join the UN, and everyone will sleepwalk right into it. That this campaign was overwhelmingly successful hardly needs mentioning. The opposition was indeed rendered so impotent that it was unable to gather any significant support in the Senate against the United Nations Charter. Americans, jubilant at the idea of a peace organization which was in their national interest, unhesitatingly pledged their unlimited cooperation and support. And you got to remember as well, this was like when a lot of people had the First and the Second World War, and it was still in living memory. So that was the time to get massive popular support for something like this. And it makes you wonder, when you look into the origins of those two events, and talking about how things are planned and the blueprints exist and the schematics and the timelines and the scripts, was it all orchestrated as one plan? Americans, jubilant at the idea of a peace organization which was in their national interest, unhesitatingly pledged their cooperation and support. By 1954, however, the United Nations began to lose some of its initial luster in American circles. A rising tide of opposition was clearly on the horizon. Once again, the communists went into high gear, this time to throw up a wall of protection around their pet creation. For instance, the July 1954 issue of the Communist Daily Worker, in an article headed US Labor and the UN, said, quote, "Both AFL and CIO have consistently given verbal support to the UN. Their conventions unfailingly adopted resolutions to the effect since the establishment of the World Organization in 1945. Now the time has come when it is more than ever necessary to match the words with deeds, for the UN is in danger of going the way of the old League of Nations." A few months later, the same newspaper offered its communist readers several tips on what arguments to use to overcome any criticism of the United Nations' dismal record. It answered the critics this way. Quote, "So you see, it's not the UN that merits your scorn and active opposition, but the policies that have undermined the UN and turned it into the opposite kind of an organization than was envisioned in San Francisco and provided in the Charter." A further indication of the communist interest in maintaining the United Nations can be found in the preamble to the Constitution of the Communist Party. The Communist Party of the United States fights uncompromisingly against all forms of chauvinism. It holds further that the true national interest of our country and the cause of peace and progress require the strengthening of the United Nations as a universal instrument of peace. This, then, is the baby carriage that has been sold to the American people. Sold, but not yet delivered. 1964, remember? When the day comes that the planners feel ready to assemble the parts on our soil, our innocence and good intentions will be of small comfort. The plan is both simple and brilliant. But have the communists succeeded in conquering 1/3 of the world through stupidity? Did they do it with brute force? Was it luck? The answers to these questions are obvious. One thing for which the communists must be given credit is that they are master strategists. They know full well that they could never hope to conquer the world through military might alone. But through trickery and deception, they have developed a formula whereby they can take over America and thus the rest of the world, without firing a single shot.